Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Are we live?
Yes, we are live.
Okay, wonderful. So let's see. I don't know how many people already were able to join, but welcome, welcome, welcome. This is our second stream. My name is Dr. Francesca Perepletchikova. Jessica Kreiser is a moderator that has been working for me for a while, helping me with super parenting courses, helping me with all other tasks that require her undivided and wonderful and very wise and helpful assistance. So thank you, Jessica, for being here and for helping with this as well. So being the second stream, we do have some questions remaining for the previous one, and we're very diligent at recording them and making sure that we answer as many questions as everybody has. And today, if we have the time, depending on how many people we have and how many questions we have, we may or may not have time to address the questions that have been already previously answered. Now, if we don't have the time to address all of the questions, and I already mentioned to everybody before in the first stream, I do have a self-diagnosed verbal diarrhea. I can talk for hours about one question. So, and those of you who were present there last month, probably have noticed that I do tend to talk a lot. And there is a reason for that is because a lot of the time I need to give you a bird eye view so that you can indeed understand the answer that I'm providing, because your questions are very complex and which requires complex answers. So we may not get to all of the questions that you're asking. However, either we are going to use these questions for the next streams, and as you hopefully know, I'm offering live YouTube stream with question and answer for parents, for therapists, for youth, for teens, for young adults, whoever has an issue with and challenges with emotional regulation, with relationship with self, with relationship with other people. So these streams are being offered once a month, every Tuesday, fourth Tuesday of the month at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So if I can't answer your question because it's only 60 minutes, I will either try to answer it the next time, or I will use these questions, especially if there is a pattern of the same question being asked, as to develop the content of my short YouTube presentations for the future. So as I already said last time, here we may have people who are parents, who are psychologists, who are teens, who are young adults, who may be grandparents, who may indeed have children themselves who are suffering from emotional and behavioral issues, those who suffer themselves from the emotional tsunamis and having difficulties regulating themselves and therefore having all kind of issues that arise in their life because of that. People who have issues in the relationship with themselves, who will be asking me about their children, who will be asking me about the relationship with parents. So hopefully we're going to have a wonderful discussion that touches upon both sides of the continuum. And I just wanted to also note that Jessica is going to be selecting from the questions that seem most relevant to our discussion as of today, because sometimes we develop themes. And especially if there's a repeating question, of course, that question is going to be on air. Other than that, I will try to answer all the questions either next time or in the content that I'm developing. Did I miss anything from the introduction? I think we're good. Okay, excellent.
Wonderful. So, we'll start on a few questions. Again, if anyone has any questions, to put them in the chat. The first question that has been asked is, how can we address kids who run away from the house whenever they're in crisis?
Oh, wow. This is a very difficult question to answer because it involves safety issues. Safety above and beyond the ones when you're having a child having a temper tantrum, screaming and yelling for 5 hours, 5 hours screaming, yelling, sending you to hell, telling you they're the worst parents that ever lived. I wish you die. I wish your cancer comes back. In those moments, children who are emotionally dysregulated, it's an emotional intoxication. Everything goes, right? This beautiful, wonderful child who is very compassionate, who is very understanding and empathic to everybody around, who loves animals, who is very creative, in a moment of dysregulation because of the emotional tsunamis, they turn into, this prehistoric monkey comes out and everything goes. Now, with that said, 5 hours or whatever of screaming at the top of the lungs, saying all kind of vicious things, swearing, safe. Yes, it's safe. Nobody is actually physically getting hurt. Yes, emotionally, absolutely, because to tell you the truth, the only way that we can indeed qualify incidents like that, it can be qualified only as a verbal abuse towards the parent or anybody around, or God forbid, physical violence, so also physical abuse to people around that child. However, it is safe to the child, right? Him screaming, there's no safety necessarily being, there's no safety issues. Running away, especially given that I would imagine that what you're talking about is not necessarily getting out of the house and hiding somewhere on a premises in the bushes, because that can also happen. When you say run away, I would assume that the child is actually bolting and taking off. So my question usually, if a parent comes my way, I would first ask exactly that. So what does it mean, running away? Is he hiding somewhere on the premises, not too far from the house, waiting for somebody to come out? Because that would be one type of the intervention. Or whether the child is actually bolting, running away, and now it turns to be very unsafe. Now, if the child is staying on the premises, and we have a lot of children that actually, even in therapy, in the therapy context, a lot of the time, I always ask parents, when I used to work from the office, right? Now I do all of my sessions on Zoom. But when I used to be in the office, I would be asking parents, one of the questions would be, is your child a runner? Because yes, our children who are emotionally sensitive, who have difficulty with behavioral regulation, all of them have issues with their sense of safety. Sense of safety means control, ability to predict, ability to know what's going to happen, and ability to control what is going to be happening to whichever degree possible. Now, and when we're talking about control and sense of safety, we're talking about the reaction, fight, or flight. And they go back and forth, meaning fear, and then anger comes in to protect, to seize the control back, to relieve the fear, right? So, and our super sensors a lot of the time can be either mostly aggressive, right? When they're safe, when their sense of safety is being impinged upon, and when somebody's trying to take their control away by not doing what they want, or they're telling us what to do, and we're not doing what they want, right? Or we're telling them what to do, and they don't want to do what we want. All of that is about the control being lost. And then they're either trying to attack to get that control back, right? Or the other response is, fight or flight, right? They're trying to run away, avoid the situation. So that's why I always ask parents, so what is the tendency for the child? Is it to fight? Is it to flight? And sometimes it's both, and they vacillate. And if the parents are telling me, yes, he does, try to run away, but then he's going to probably stay around the vicinity, not going to go too far, waiting for people to come and get him. Then if that is what it is, then we would say, hey, listen, then if this is what it is, and we can tolerate, we need to know our child. We can tolerate the child, the risk, right? We can tolerate the risk because we know that the child is actually not going to go further than the building. Then we don't do anything. We just sit in the office, talking, waiting for the child to come back. And sooner or later, the child does come back. Or at the end of the session, the parent exits the room and takes the child and goes home. If the child bolts. Now that's very different. Usually in the waiting area of my office, we would have another parent or a babysitter or whatever that would indeed be waiting for that and supersede, because we would not be able to tolerate that level of risk. So now let's talk about that level of risk as well. And regardless of whether they're getting outside and just waiting for somebody to look for them, or they're actually bolting and running away, first of all, we need to recognize when the child is actually in between those episodes. Of course, when it's already happening, it's too late to figure things out. Now we need to react. In between episodes, when child is nice, when child is calm, we need to figure out why the child is doing this. What is the function behind the behavior? And every behavior is multifunctional. And every person will have their own reason why they are doing this, what they're trying to satisfy with that behavior. And unfortunately, not a lot of the time we actually know why, for sure, right? We need to sit there and figure this out. Running away could be attention seeking. It could be retaliation, right? Against the parents. You don't like me to run away and you did something that I don't like. I'm going to do this for you. This could be a solution to the problem, which is avoidance of the problem, right? I don't know. And depending on what this function is, only then we can match the intervention to the function of the behavior. One of the things that we need to always recognize when we are therapists or when we are parents, we cannot start to look at the solutions to the problem, whatever the problem may be, with our child, until we actually recognize why the child is doing what they're doing. And sometimes we don't know, right? Sometimes it's obvious and sometimes not necessarily. So the first question that I would ask, that if you were to come to me to my office and we'll talk about your child running away, I would talk to the child and I will ask him, what do you think? What does it do for you? What does it help you with? Right. And we have all kind of specific techniques that you may not necessarily know, be able to use to get that information out. But if even without those techniques, you sit down with the child and you ask that question, that by itself is validating for the child. That by itself, it shows to the child that you are protecting that child, that you are interested in what they get to say, that you are there to help, that you are there to resolve that issue. If you are lucky enough to understand the function of the behavior, then you can figure out what to do with that. If the child is running away because that's their way to relieve the emotional anguish that they have in the moment, and when you bolt, right, this actually gives you a sense of control because you're doing something with the situation. You're making a decision on what to do. You can teach your child other ways in which they can get control. You can teach your child other ways in which they can indeed decrease the emotional arousal instead of. And so understand what it is. Match intervention by the function of the behavior. And then, most importantly, practice that technique in pretend mode over and over and over again in between episodes. Meaning, let's pretend I said no to something and you have this urge to run away. What you're going to do, and the child is going to say the technique that you have discussed, and then you role play it, high 5 points, right? Or however else you want to reinforce your child for doing role plays. So what you're doing in this moment, you are overriding the program that your child has. Running away is a learned behavior. When we talk about functions, we're talking about what is reinforcing, what is maintaining that behavior. He's getting something out of it. That's the function. He may not necessarily even know exactly what he's getting out of it. That's why we need to sit down and understand it. But he's getting something out of it, right? That's the function of the behavior. And what we need to do is we need to understand it. We need to intervene and either satisfy that function by other means, for example, attention giving, right? Give attention for positive behaviors or whatever else the intervention that you want to do. So first understand why. Then match your understanding with the function with the appropriate intervention. And then role play, practice, practice, practice what you're doing, you are recoding your child's brain. This is a biological computer. Every time you do something, every time you say something, you write a program. And this program is about, what do I do next time I am that upset? Based on, I actually did experience relief before. So when you are doing practice, practice, practice of an adaptive technique, what you're doing is you're overriding the previous program that probably, unfortunately, is very strong because it was coded and recoded multiple times. I would assume your child did not run away once. I assume your child ran away multiple times. So this is a coded and recoded, repeating code program. It's very strong. So therefore, you need to replace it with another program. When I feel that badly that I want to run away, I am going to do something else, such as use a skill, for example, over and over. And when you're practicing the technique, it doesn't have to be in real time. In real time, meaning when already child is upset, it's too late. That's when they need to use an already coded and recoded another adaptive program. You see how this works? And what I just gave you, this is the mechanism behind reprogramming your child, one of the mechanisms. You, parents, please remember, you are foundational programmers. You are there programming your child from the very beginning. Your influence, your modeling is something that your child is taking and learning from. What you say, what you do, what you teach your child, all of this is foundational, meaning that all the other programs that are built on that foundation is going to be built with that information in mind, right? How does learning happens? Information comes into our brain from our senses, and now our brain needs to make sense of it. How? By comparing to what we already know. And what we already know, all the programs, all the learned behavior comes from you because you were there first. And now new programs will take that information, they count whatever we're interpreting in the world is going to come from that source. So you have tremendous power. And on top of that, you are an unquestionable authority. I already talked about this before, but I'm going to repeat this. It's very important, especially for the new people here. We don't realize the power we have over our children. We are indeed unquestionable authority. Why? Because we are all control freaks. We're designed that way. Again, sense of safety. We need to maintain control to feel safe in this unpredictable world, right? And quite scary world. So we need that control. And we start to exercise it as soon as possible. We're programmed that way. It's nothing good or bad. That's just how we are. Like a little kid who is barely walking and talking, the first word is usually mama, second one, father, and the third one is what? No. No is a word of control. This little creature barely walking and talking is already exercising control. If the nature were to leave it as is, just like that, then we will all try to just learn on our own mistakes and perish. We will not survive that far. Therefore, nature pre-programmed a need to follow parental adult modeling, right? We knew that for many, many years. And now in 2000s came out a very interesting research. It's called the over-imitation phenomenon, in which it is, I'm not going to go into that. I described all of that in my videos, so you can find it. But what it is that, that phenomenon is about, and we don't share it with any other animals, mammals. It's just human, meaning that human children are pre-programmed to see adult behaviors, adult actions, proven, tested, proven necessary, even if I, a child, don't understand why. This is how cultures and religions are transmitted, right? So on a level of consciousness, if you say to your child, you're so stupid, they may send you back to hell and say, no, you're stupid. Below the waterline in our unconscious, below the waterline of the iceberg, of our psychological iceberg that consists, the tip of the iceberg is our conscious awareness. And below the waterline is this huge mass of unconscious that actually governs our behavior the most. 90%, 90, of our responses come from unconscious, right? So below the waterline, if you say to your child, you're stupid, even if the child resisted on a conscious level, that's it. My father said that I'm stupid. I am stupid. So we are foundational programmers and we are unquestionable authority. Our children are our products, biologically and environmentally. And this is not a statement of blame at all. We cannot blame ourselves. If we knew what to do differently, if we had a capacity to implement that knowledge and didn't do it, now that's a different story. But most of the time, these children don't come with instructions. We don't know what to do with them. So we're not to blame for the result. And at the same time, we're responsible for it. This is a dialectic. This is the paradox, which is the only norm of our existence. So we are responsible for it because our children are our product. And this is a statement of hope, because if we can program them any way we can and want, and that's exactly what it is. Again, because we're foundational programmers and unquestionable authority. Therefore, we can program them any way we want. It's just the older they get, the harder it's going to be. With the smaller kids, it's easier. But what I gave you, the formula of how to change your child's behavior if you don't like it, understand why your child is doing it. What's the function? Match intervention by function, and then practice, 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 practice. This is the first law of dialectic, quantity into quality. The more you practice, the higher the probability that eventually your child is going to do what it is needed to be done. And as you're doing all of this marvelous parenting work, don't get attached to the outcome. You can't control your child. Don't look at what your child is doing or not doing, responding, not responding. Then you'll be at much higher probability of dropping the ball and not continuing with it if you don't get the response that you want. In a situation that you know why the child is doing it and you're matching it tightly with the appropriate intervention, then just keep doing it. Keep doing it, because at some point you're going to get the result, right? If your child's still not responding, then maybe you didn't do it enough. So no attachment to outcome. Just do what you can do. You can't control your child. You can only control yourself. And one of the things that we need to understand and really appreciate and uphold is this, what's called an internal locus of control, ability to control the only thing that I can, me, what I do, what I feel, what I think, my biology. Anytime we don't like what other people are doing in a relationship with us, we try to change them. That includes our partners, that includes our children. No, it's impossible. We can't change anybody because we can't control anybody. If you are not happy in a relationship with another person, if another person is not doing something that you like, stop yourself and ask yourself a question. Wait a second. What do I need to do differently in order for that person to change their behavior and change what you do? This is directly influencing yourself. A great example of that is ignoring. When my child's screaming and yelling, I want to scream and yell back, but instead, I ignore, I look away. I don't see you, I don't hear you, I don't talk to you. That's directly influencing me, which will indirectly influence the child indirectly. I didn't do anything to the kid. I didn't say anything. I didn't even look at my kid. I'm indirectly influencing my child. I am changing his behavior. Initially, his behavior is going to get worse. Extinction burst. Child is going to scream even more. It's a change in the behavior. And if you continue to ignore consistently, the behavior is going to extinguish. This is a great example of how to indirectly influence other people by first influencing what you do. And that's exactly what we need to learn how to do. If you don't like what your child is doing, be that runaway, be that screaming, yelling, be that non-compliance, doesn't really matter. Stop yourself and ask, what can I do differently? And in this example, what you can do differently is you can sit down with your child. You can ask them what could be the issues, what could be the program, what could be the functions behind his behavior, why he's doing what he's doing. Figure out how to intervene, right? Read things, talk to a psychologist, whatever it may be. And then practice, practice, practice. The practice is on you. Or at least offer your child opportunities to practice and do it in a way that it can be reinforced practice so the child actually gets something out of it. Okay.
There's a great follow-up question to that and where you just left off on. So what do you do when kids don't want to practice skills or do pretend mode and you can't find an incentive strong enough to get them to practice?
Yes, again, beautiful question. This comes up all the time. This is what the non-attachment to outcome situation. All you can do is what you can do. What you can do as a parent. What you can do as a parent. Again, bird eye view as always. What you can do as a parent is practice the dialectical parenting stance. Dialectical parenting stance is because everything in this life is not the same, but complementary. Dialectics, right? Day, night, man, woman, yin, yang, life, death, right? Dialectical, complementary. And whatever we do, if we want to be dialectical, if we want to move with speed and flow, if we want to be flexible and not stuck, stuck means one-sided, right? No dialectical balance, no dialectical movement, one-sided. We need to always uphold two sides, and because they are complementary, one side will always going to be stable and one side will always be flexible. On the stable side, parenting stance is I love my child unconditionally just because you exist. No requirements, nothing that my child needs to do for me to love my child. And I need to make sure that I'm communicating that to my kid through random expression of love. Like a child passing you by, love you. You go one way, they're the other one just because. Random. Not great job, I love you. You just wrote a program that for me to be loved by my mother, I need to do something good, right? It's very simple. Writing those programs are very simple, right? And that's already a program that makes our love, our understanding of love as conditional. Simple as that, right? So I love you just because you exist. I accept everything that you do. By definition of acceptance, I don't like it. If we like something, we don't need to accept it. We need to reinforce it, right? I don't like when you're screaming. I don't like when you're yelling. I don't like when you're throwing things around that you're not, following instructions right away. I don't like any of that, that you're running away. And I'm accepting it, not approving. You see, two sides. Acceptance means I don't like it, but I'm not fighting reality. I'm not criticizing. I'm not blaming. I'm not shaming. I'm not judging. I'm not doing downward comparisons, right? All of this is harmful invalidation. So instead, I'm validating. I'm communicating to you and to me. I understand why it's happening. Yeah, I understand why you screamed at me because you wanted ice cream and I didn't give it to you. Of course, I understand why you're upset. A lot of people will be upset about this. You see, you didn't approve it, but you said, I understand. Opposite of criticism, opposite of judgment, right? So I love you just because you exist. I accept everything that you do through the mechanism of validation and no wiggle room. If it's 1 hour of TV, it's 1 hour of TV, not 1 hour and 60 minutes. You need to be in control of contingencies to maintain that stance, right? But that's a separate story. And the flexible side, I'm taking into consideration all kind of information, my child's needs, my child's perspective. I'm changing my decisions and ruling based on new information coming in, right? Now, if you can maintain that stance and you're coming into the child and you're saying to a child, hey, remember, listen, I really, I do understand why you were so upset with me when I asked you to do the homework, right? Nobody likes homework. Homework is boring. I fully get it. And you were playing on a video game, you know, who wants to get off the video game to do the boring, homework? You see, you validated. Then you can ask your child, right? So what's not the best way in which, the outcome of that was, right? Nobody was, really satisfied with how that situation happened. What can we do differently next time? And then lead your child to say, okay, next time I'm going to say, okay. And then you practice it and then you reinforce it. Now, in any time during that sequence, your child may send you to hell. You can control your child. However, what did you do? You did everything that you needed to do to be the protector for your child, to be the one to have the, to be the parent that your child needs to be, for you need to be, the child needs you to be. You validated, you modeled to the child how to talk to other human beings. You told him that you understand him. That by itself is gold. If you keep validating your child over and over and over again, right? Number one, they will see you as a person that they can come to and not be afraid of being judged. This is so important. How can you be a protector, right? And the only protectors we have in life are our parents. If I cannot come to my parent because I'm afraid of my parent, right? Afraid of the judgment and criticism. No. You also communicated, as I said, to your child how to talk to other human being in nice, kind, compassionate manner. You ask questions, right? You offered opportunities to role play. You offered opportunities to reinforce, the practicing of the techniques, and your child took none of it. Your child took none of it. You cannot control your child. What you can do is all of that. Seeding, right? So child actually using techniques, child actually being willing to practice. This is the outcome that we need. This is not the process. All we are in control of is the process, not the outcome. Outcome is never ours, right? Because there's so many variables that are, need to happen just like that for any outcome. We're just one variable in the string of those variables, which is infinite string of variables for any outcome. So what we need to do is we need to just seed, seed, seed by modeling, by validating, by doing random expression of love, by, maintaining wiggle room, by teaching, by asking, by understanding functions, by offering opportunities to practice, by offering reinforcement and motivation, right? That's all we can do. For germination to occur, meaning the change that you want, we need what? We also need for the soil to be ripe. When that soil becomes ripe, you don't know. Nobody knows, right? Child is not in control of it. You are not in control of it. Nobody. But once the soil becomes ripe, the seeds already need to be there, right? So to answer your question now from that bird eye view, what can you do? Set a stage. Set a stage in which your child actually wants to role play with you, not only because of the motivation, such as points or actual tangible rewards, because he wants to make you happy, because he wants to please you. Can you imagine that happening? And that can happen. For example, if you do reciprocity with your child, meaning that you do things that your child wants to do on child's terms, such as he wants to play video games, you sit down and you play video games with your child. He wants to run around outside and play ball, you get out and you run. And I know that we all are very busy, and I understand that we all have all other things and other children and work and this and that, and all of that is also very important, and all of that is an investment into one day. With all of that being done, your child is actually agreeing to do things with you, right? Actually has the motivation to please you, to make you happy because you are making him happy, right? And the question of motivation. One of the things that we need to recognize is a lot of the times our children are not motivated to do any of it because they're getting everything for free. Look around what your kid is getting for free. You know, any amount of video game time, right? Or whatever video game time, all of that free, none of that to be earned. Money that we're giving to our children on a weekly basis as allowance just because. I don't understand the concept of free allowance. It's teaching your children about free money and why. That's such a wonderful opportunity for your child to actually get the motivation to do all of these skills training and everything else that you want, right? So time on video games, again, nothing too extreme. Not that all time on video games is earned or all time is free. No, some free, some earned, right? Uh, Things that your child is getting. For example, he needs new shoes. Great, wonderful. Of course, that's a need, not a want, a need. You're going to say, all right, I'm willing to pay whatever, $20, $30 for new shoes. I'm just giving a random number. If he wants a pair of shoes of like Nikes or like something else that is, I don't know, fashionable and important for a kid, you say, no problem. I'm giving you that much money. The rest is on you, right? That you can earn through skills practice, that you can earn through chores, that you can do all other things. So you can always figure out how to motivate your child, because I have not yet met a child that wanted nothing. I met children who got everything and did not want anything because they already had it. That happens all the time. Unless, of course, the child is clinically depressed and ahedonic, what it's called, like nothing pleases them. But that's a bit of a different story, right? When we're talking about regular type of interactions with our kids who are not clinically depressed and cannot get out of the bed, they want things. Just take a look at whether or not they are getting everything already for free. Then, of course, they will say, I don't want anything else because I already have everything. So now, with all of that said, to narrow it down to answer your question, to increase probability of your child actually agreeing to practice skills and do anything else, you need to set up a relationship with your child in which he wants to come to you, he wants to talk to you, he wants to please you, right? Otherwise, he will not even discuss with you what to do instead. Forget practice, not even discuss with you. And then practice with you because he wants to make you happy, because you're making him happy through reciprocity, doing things with him as on his terms, God knows what, right? And also make sure that things that your child is getting are not all free, that you indeed have limits and that you indeed can offer something free. And a lot of it needs to be earned, which also teaching the child how to invest their time and effort to actually get something out of it. That's beautiful. That's teaching agency. So it's win, 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 win.
Right. So the next question, we had a similar question last week that we didn't get to. So the question is, my schedule means I can't always be with my dysregulated child during the day and need a nanny. Do you have any suggestions on what we should teach them to teach the nanny to do to handle the child? Or if there's like any alternatives to either to share with the nanny?
Okay. Beautiful question. So in therapy, when I have a child coming in, it takes a village to raise a child, right? So it's not just that the child is coming in. No, 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 no. It's not that the child and the parents are coming in, right? It's the child, it's the parents, it's the siblings, it's the grandparents, it's the nanny, and we're talking to school personnel, and we're talking to school psychologists, and there may be a one-on-one aid. So everybody who is involved in raising the child, we do want, just as you said, you want consistency. You want for your child to be in the environment in which you're not the only one who is providing him with acceptance, love, validation, no wiggle room, right? You want other people to do it as well to whichever degree possible. Of course, they may not be able to learn all of it, and you may not be able to communicate all of it to them. But for example, when I see a family and there is a nanny, I always involve nanny in training to whichever degree possible. And some of the things that I'm teaching the nanny, as well as what I'm teaching to school personnel, is several things. Always validation, how to validate. Validation is a magic tool. It's an absolute magic tool. But by the way, validation means what? You are communicating to another human being. I understand why you are feeling this, saying this, thinking this, doing this, right? I understand why. I don't blame, I don't judge, I don't criticize. It's the opposite of that. I don't agree. I don't approve. Like if a child comes in and he self-harms, and I would say, listen, I get it. It actually does help you in a moment when you self-harm, right? Reduces your emotional arousal. I didn't say, great job, keep doing it. No, but I said, I understand. So validation, basically, it makes sense to me because, you see, cause. There's a validation is about, I'm communicating to you, I understand the causes of your behavior. Don't approve, understand. Acceptance and approval are on two different sides of the continuum. Always teach validation, always practice validation. It's a magic tool for many reasons. And I will not get into each and every one of them. I actually have all kind of videos on validation that you can look at the YouTube. So I don't want to waste our time today because it's already the content available. But just to give you an understanding, number one, validation by itself is an emotion regulation technique. Have you seen that when you validate a person and they come to you and say, can you imagine, my boyfriend broke up with me on a text, whatever, right? And you say, oh my God, I can't believe what a bastard, what kind of a person is he? And you see the person doing this. You see, deflate. They deflate. You know what just happened when they deflate? You got it. You understood that. And there is a process that happens in our brain that actually drops the energy, the tension, right, that we have accumulated because of whatever happened. And when we validate another human being, or when we self-validate, right, when we receive validation from others or validate ourselves, it functions as an emotion regulation. I, I'm understood. I'm supported. Somebody's there for me. Somebody's there who's understanding me, not criticizing me. I am not alone. I am not alone. Number one, already you took away some of the problem, right? And increased chances of your child either already regulating much better or at least being more willing to talk to you. Why? Because when you validate, you are going the opposite of the script that the person is having in their head, right? A child comes to you and says, can you imagine what my brother, he broke my favorite fire truck and I punch him in the face. The child is coming to you thinking that what you're going to say. How could you, fighting is not the way to do it. And yeah, you're right. Fighting is not the way to do it. But that's also what you're saying is not what will be effective in the moment for you to change the child's behavior. Because the last thing that you want to do, if you want to change somebody else's behavior, is to make them angry and defensive. So if you say, well, fighting is not the way to go, you're going to make your child angry even more and will put them in a position to defend themselves against you. That's it. You lost. As soon as you need to argue with your child about anything, you lost, regardless of the outcome. You may get what you want, but you already lost as a parent because you lost your parental authority, right? You're no longer a protector. You just put yourself on the same level with the child, right? So instead, validate, which is you say to the person exactly what they wanted to communicate to you for them. You violated their script, right? You didn't say, well, fighting is not the way to go. Instead, you said, of course, I understand why you're so angry at your brother because, he broke your favorite truck. I'll be so angry too. You know what just happened? A moment of confusion because the child did not have that line from a mother in the script. They're like, what do I say now? I was preparing to fight. Still fighting with me, right? Moment of confusion. When you have a moment of confusion, what can you have? Now you can move in and you can make another person play your game with your rules. Before, if you follow the script, you're playing their game. You can win it. You cannot win somebody else's game if you're playing by their rules. Make them play yours. And this is one of the ways to do this. So validation is amazing because right now the child is yours. Right now he's with you. You're on the same bank of the river, right? And now because he's like, oh, they get me, they emotionally, right, much more balanced because it's also an emotion regulation technique. Now you can push your child to where you want the child to go. That's why whenever we do processing, whenever we want something from a child, whenever we want to do a change in the behavior, we always start with validation. So teach validation. By the way, this is the most rapid change. When clients come to me, The very first that I teach parents is validation, and they start using validation. And a lot of the times, parents come back after a couple of sessions and say, you know what? I think my kid is already fine. I don't think we need to keep coming to you because everything is good. That's not necessarily so, but validation by itself is absolute magic. Try it, use it on yourself and other people. The other thing that I would teach that person is ignoring, right? Again, we don't have time for me to get into the ignoring, but ignoring pretty much means where are my three monkeys? Here they are. Okay, that's what I always show children. And I also teach ignoring to children, to ignore their siblings, to ignore their, peers at school, whatever. I don't see you. I don't hear you. I don't talk to you. I am out. You don't exist in this moment, right? Now, ignoring is a very active process. So many more things are happening in your head during the ignoring that I cannot get into this right now. But ignoring is beautiful and wonderful. Why? Because it is not reinforcing whatever behavior that you're seeing and precluding new functions of the behavior happening, because the child may be screaming because they're upset to relieve their emotional arousal, because we all know when we scream, we feel better in the moment. And as the child is screaming, people start to attend. Oh, new function of the behavior developed. If I want people to attend to me, then I need to scream. Or people cannot take it anymore and they say, okay, whatever you want. Ooh, new function developed. Oh, if I want something from somebody, I need to scream. And sooner or later, they're going to give in and give me what I want, and so forth and so forth, right? So ignoring does not reinforce the function of this behavior right now and precludes new functions from happening, right? So ignoring is fantastic. Also, teach your babysitter a skill or two that the child knows and the child has been using with you and is useful for your child, and you know that. And then make sure that your child is actually, your babysitter actually knows that two skills, whatever it is, so that they can prompt their use and help them to know how to reinforce it. Because if you have your own point chart or something else, that's exactly what they can use. Okay, so these are some of the things that we're teaching: validation, ignoring, skills, specific skill that the child is already knows and uses a lot, and how to actually reinforce, right? And that can be taught to babysitter, that can be taught to a teacher, to a school personnel, to a school psychologist, to one-on-one aid. Doesn't really matter. It's the same principle. To grandparents, by the way.
Another question is along kind of the same lines, but in regards to external support structure, so like the school staff, how do you get them to actually do, or agree to this training? Just because a lot of them are underpaid or tired and would rather turn a blind eye.
Unfortunately, that is absolutely true. And as we said, we can't control anybody. We can only offer. A lot of the times, the school personnel is also hungry for that knowledge because they themselves are stretched out and burned out by the child's behavior. And if you're telling them, well, hey, listen, we use it at home and it actually works, that could be one of the things that can actually motivate them, right? And of course, they have other children there. And of course, dealing with your child's behavior is not their priority because they're there to teach. They're not there to correct the behavior. And one of the things that I always do is school programs. School program consists of the teacher, whoever else is telling me what are the three things that a child is doing that the teacher doesn't like. For example, runs out of the classroom or physically fights with other children. And then what I'm asking is to turn it into the positive opposite and say, all right, what we're actually going to monitor and reinforce, like running out of the classroom, actually being in the classroom, staying in the classroom behavior, or physically fighting, keeping hands and feet to self, right? And the only thing that we are asking the teachers to do is to provide the parents an account of whether or not it has and has not been done by a child, right? Just like write you a note or send a note in the child's backpack, right? Done, not done, And then they come home and you reinforce it. And you make a big deal out of that. Teachers don't even have to do that much, right? They can still say, great job, right? But you can be the ones to make a whole drama out of that, of how happy you are to receive those notes. So relieve as much of a pressure from the teachers as possible, because indeed they will not be there to support your child as much as you can. And that's why a lot of the time when what we see is that child is having tremendous difficulties at home, but then comes to school and absolutely fine, right? And could be a model citizen at school. And then teachers look at the parents and saying, well, must be something wrong with you if your child is behaving that way. No, there's nothing wrong with the family. What's happening is that children are feeling safe there. And I always say kudos to you parents that your child is screaming and yelling at you because apparently he feels safe enough in your environment to do this, like child holding and holding and holding their, holding the poker face at school and then comes home and explodes, which has happened, right? Your child now is in a safe environment to release all of that tension. It's not that they're regulated in the environment. Regulated means that you know what to do with your emotions. They're not regulating their emotions. They're suppressing them. They're stuffing them until they get to a safe place when they just explode, right? And there are all kind of ways we can do about that. But anyway, so there are fortunately families in which the child feels so threatened by the parents because they may be punitive or use prolonged inappropriate punishment, retaliatory, that they keep straight face at home and then come to school and explode there. Now that's a much bigger problem because we can't do that much there because it's not the teacher's job to be the parent to that child, right? And they have other children there. They don't have the time, they don't have the motivation, they don't have the interest or the skills to actually do all of this. So that becomes a much bigger problem if that's the situation when the child actually is behaving at home but explodes at school. So two sides to everything. If you have it the other way around, it's much better because you are the ones who can actually make the difference and you're the one who's supposed to make the difference. And remember, you're foundational programmers and unquestionable authority. Teachers will never ever be that. They don't have your power.
Okay. Um, so the next question is, how do you handle sibling rivalry when one is dysregulated?
Good one. So sibling rivalry happens all the time. So what usually when you say sibling rivalry, multiple things happen. Number one, it could be that they're screaming at each other, provoke each other, right? Another level to that, they try to drag you, right? And say, Mom, my sister, right? Come fix it for me. So two situations. Let's talk about the situation number one, when they're just against each other. In this situation, you talk to both of them. And what I usually do if that child, is my client, I will talk to the child, I will talk to the sibling, and I will just explain that number one, nobody can provoke you. That is true for adults, children, adolescents, doesn't matter, for human beings. Nobody can provoke you. All events are subjectively neutral. Objectively, they can be terrible, like war. War is an objectively terrible thing, but some people subjectively, it's still neutral because some people will look at the war and say, oh, causes death, destruction, devastation, should be avoided at all times, terrible. Some people can benefit from warfare and therefore welcome the news of conflict. You see, same thing. Whether objectively good or bad, subjectively is always neutral because how we see it all depends on our own interpretation. And our interpretations are always based on our own lens, our own world. So subjectively, all events are neutral. I say you're so stupid to five people, five different reactions because five different interpretations. Therefore, nobody can provoke you. What happens is something happens, that information goes into your mind makes an interpretation of it, And then you provoke yourself with your own interpretation, which is tremendous power. Meaning what? You can change the way you react because other people are not responsible for your emotions. When people fight with each other, what are they trying to do? When siblings fight with each other, when they're saying, Mom, Dad, or whatever, they're trying to make other people responsible for the way they feel. It's your fault I feel that way. No, it's not. It's my fault. I interpret it that way. If I don't want to feel that way, I need to put the finger on myself and change what I do, what I feel, what I think, my biology. Simple, not easy, but that's the only way. So I explain that to children. Uh, when your brother is trying to provoke you and you actually do give them the response, who wins? Of course, he wins. You lose. He wins. He gets the response from you. So when you turn around and walk away, who wins? You win because he did not get your reaction. He was fishing for your reaction. So do you want to be a winner, loser? What do you want to be, right? Of course, that's not that simple. In the moment when he's doing that to you, of course, your emotion is bubbling up and wants you to become aggressive back. So you need to learn some skills. So what you do, you explain that. You teach your child skills of emotion regulation, breathe in, breathe out, whatever it is. And you reinforce them walking away from each other. Whoever walks away gets reinforced. If they walked away and you saw it, immediately jump in, great job. If they did it without your presence, they need to come to you and say, hey, Mom, can you imagine I walked away from Johnny? And you say, all right, wonderful, show me. And then turn it into the role play, meaning it's irrelevant whether it's true or not. You can still use it as a role play and reinforce the role play, even if it didn't happen. Beautiful, you wrote the program. So this is the situation when they're against each other and you're not being dragged in. If you are being dragged in, explain to your children, listen, I can't change your relationship. I can't help you because I'm not part of it. It's between you and your sister. If you don't like what your sister is doing, change what you do. Don't drag me in. The only thing that I can do is I can model it myself, how to indeed deal in interpersonal situations of that sort. I can teach you how to indeed change the relationship with other people by changing what you do yourself. And what? That's it. I can model, I can teach, and I can actually practice those techniques with you. And I can reinforce you for walking away, for ignoring whatever it may be, but I cannot solve your problem for you. When you're dragging me in, there's nothing I can do. What you want me is to punish your sibling. Punishment doesn't work much to change anybody's behavior. What you're just doing, you're trying to retaliate because you are actually angry that somebody did something to you that you don't like. Absolutely. But that's on you to fix. You cannot fix your problem by trying to change another human being. It doesn't work. It's an illusion. It's not real. We cannot, number one, control anybody. And number two, nobody's actually responsible for our reactions. Nobody's responsible for the way I feel. It's my own interpretation that produces that feeling. Nobody's responsible for how I react. My own interpretation caused me to react that way. Nobody's responsible for it. And that's the power that I have. Why give it away? Why would you want to give your power, your control over your life, over the way you feel, think, and do things to your brother or your sister? Claim it. Put it back on yourself. Walk away, breathe. If you don't like that relationship, change it. Number one, don't provoke your brother, yourself. Number two, walk away from provocations. Number three, try to compliment your brother on things that actually is happening. So try to do something nice to your brother, right? Not only take away, walking away from provocations, build something back in, right? The dialectic. Take something away, we need to plug something else in, something positive. Spend time with your brother, offer them to play games with you, right? Joke with them, be nice to them, be giving towards your brother. You want your brother to be nice to you? Be nice to your brother, give to your brother. He wants to change the channel, change the channel. He wants to move to watch that movie, watch that movie. He wants to play that game, play that game. Give. And therefore you will receive. Instead, what we do, we're like vampires, sucking the blood out of each other, right? Me, 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 give, 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 give. And that's what sibling rivalry is all about. Trying to take from each other. And all we can do about this, model, teach, what to do instead, practice, reinforce. Same formula for every problem that you may have.
Right. And yeah,
we are at the end of the stream. So next time we will be live on, Jessica, when is the fourth Tuesday of April?
give me 1 minute and I will tell you. It will be the 23rd of April.
23rd of April.
Yes.
Okay, 23rd of April. I'll see you, everybody, and hopefully more people at 12 p.m. Eastern. It was fun. And this time we did not actually lose the stream in the midair like last time, which was a great example of we control nothing. I'll see you next month. Bye. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, everybody who were here today.